Now with me, I have Professor Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development and Institute Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies, CIAS. Jide Ologun, legal practitioner and national development advocate, as well as Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. Well, gentlemen, good to have you on the show. Thank you for showing up. Professor Aworawo, we missed you last week. Professor Kila, you have been behaving like the senators of the Federal Republic. Absenteeism.
You are closer to them than me.
You are sure about that? you are much closer to the politicians. But today we have had quite a number of interesting issues. Foreign affairs. We had Kenya, Uganda, Israel, US, Iran, and also, Kenya, the riots in Kenya. On local issues, we had Mr. Dr. Munda Yusuf talking about the tax bills, basically, and other related issues. So about a cocktail of about 6-7 topics that we have had to deal with. Let me start with you, Mr. Ologun, so that we go clockwise today.
Thank you very much. Let's start with the Tax Reforms Act that we have now, which has tested the stakeholders' engagement acumen of the president. Recall that when all this started, there were resistance from some governors claiming that that reform was likely to throw their people into deeper poverty. But with the engagement and allowing those who wanted to ventilate and adjusting the structure of the bills, now we've come to the point of having the law. And then some of the highlights is that it will protect the vulnerable. For instance, those within the bracket of minimum wage, we escape paying tax, and those who are in the low income ASO. And the fact that it is intended to drive international investments. Well, from what a doctor said, that has to really anchor on touching the macro environment of our economic realities in the country. And he mentioned a very vital point. Now we have these laws. How about implementation? I recall that when the petroleum industry bill was passed into law, many ran out jubilating that now, after a long time, we have this law. But how far have we gone with the law? And one of the bold steps that President Tinubu took was the issue of the local government autonomy. But even till now, we've not had a full implementation of that. So I hope that in implementing the reforms, that we'll be serious about it. And it's a good thing that it will start on January 1, 2026. Before then, it is expected that the appropriate synchronization and education and issues to balance with all the affected agencies will be clearly done. But the success of these reforms will be tested by implementation. And then that takes us out of Nigeria to the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's so sad that when you go on content analysis, Congo is rated as, if not the second richest nation in the world within that category, when you talk about wealth and in all spheres of it. But this is a country that has been laboring under colonialism, slavery, and corruption for a long time, because those who went in there to exploit the resources have deliberately created crisis, and it had become a theater of war. But it's a good thing now that a peace pact is being entered into, and we hope it will be sustained. And some of these African countries will look inward and see the fact that God has blessed them to bless their people. And my hope is that it is indeed sustained. And that takes us to Kenya where the Gen Zs have come out again on the anniversary of their protest last year against increase in price, unfriendly tax reforms, corruption and hardship on the people. And it's still a bloody engagement. So you keep wondering when Africa will come to the point of realizing that good governance is providing for the people and giving people a sense of meaning in their countries. And we understand also that the Ugandan president is going for 7th time in office. This is a man who came to office, I think, in 1986, and his party is National Resistance Movement, but right now opposition has crashed in Uganda, and he's unrepentant about it. And someone said, perhaps we have this sit tight in African DNA. But I must commend Nigeria. When IBB tried to sit tight, he dribbled himself out of Aso Villa. We still remember the 3rd-term agenda, and so maybe they have to come and learn in Nigeria. And I understand the son is also trying to succeed him. So best wishes to Uganda. And before I anchor all, we need to talk about the Israel-Iranian peace pact that Donald Trump has brokered. And thank God for Qatar that is positioning in their region as a very strategic force to ensure that we have top-line diplomacy. And we hope it will be sustained, because even though Donald Trump is claiming that they obliterated the nuclear facility in Iran, Iran is saying, no, you've not touched anything. And Iranians are saying that we are not going to surrender to you if that is your desire. So one thing is clear. In the absence of peace, what you should enjoy in life will be taken over by strangers. And that is why I just hope that those who are turning their regions to theaters of wars should think twice about, allowing the devil to make a mess of their communities. So, on that note, I also want to wish them sustained, and like it was mentioned, Donald Trump is all about business, so America first. And whatever will benefit him, he will go there to interfere. And if it's not beneficial, he looks at them from afar. But it's good that we have those who are interested in going out to broker peace where there is war.
Professor Aworawo, your take.
Yes, I want to begin with the tax act. Well, at the end of the day, reason prevailed, and we now have a tax act. I agree with our guest that no country can tax itself to prosperity. You prosper by creating wealth. You can only tax what somebody has earned. If he has earned nothing, you have nothing to tax. So he's focused on productivity and not having a tax regime that would scare away investors. I think government should take note of that. They're just focusing on the money that will come in and not thinking about how that money comes in. It should be thought about very seriously. When the bill was being debated and all that, there was a part that affected my constituency directly, the one that will have defunded TED fund. We protested, we shouted, we made our presentations, and of course, that has been adjusted. So TED fund will stay. When you go to some schools, 80% of the buildings there are TED fund sponsored. When you take it away, you will have created a crisis. And it also speaks to engaging broadly before coming out with policies. Because the engagements I had with people directly connected to the bill revealed that they didn't really know much about TED fund. They just saw that, this government agency has a huge amount of money. They were interested in just grabbing it, and that was it. But when the details were explained, it became clear that what they wanted to do was foolish. And fortunately, in the new tax act, all of that has been corrected. Like I also said several times, I would have wished that all those VAT things, derivation, feature more prominently than the provisions that were made. When the northern governors saw that the thing will have affect their state negatively, they came out as if they came out on fire. I would have expected governors like Sanwo-Olu and others too to insist on a better regime. It affected Lagos and some other states negatively. I didn't expect them to capitulate. That's the language I will use. So, easily, so that a large chunk of what they used to earn now goes away. If those people were able to stand their ground and they have now got such a good deal, people decide who have to be affected negatively should have stood their ground, so that somewhere in between will have been better. There is too much, derivation, yes, that should have been the primary focus of what determines how the VAT thing, but it is what it is, as they say. Dr. Muda also talked broadly about budgets. In fact, he spent quite some time talking about this budget, shifting, and talked about inconsistency and policy refinement, that we need all that to be able to really progress. I agree entirely with him. That all these inconsistencies, the budget, January to December, when it gets to December, they push to March, they push to May, and at the end of the day, when you look at budget implementation, sometimes they say 45%, 50%. So at the end of the day, the budget is just there, not really fulfilling what it is expected to fulfill. Then external. Kenya, I think there is something wrong about how Kenya economy has been managed in the past couple of years. It shouldn't be this bad. I think something is fundamentally wrong. When you compare Kenya, for instance, with the neighbor, Tanzania has done so well, especially from the time of John Magufuli, who tragically died during COVID.
Are you really sure that
Tanzania
is doing well?
Yes, they're a lot better. Comparatively, a lot better. Yes, a lot better.
No, because Kenya was falling while they were
exactly, and it's inexplicable. In fact, there's a recent report that shows that only recently Kenya overtook Nigeria as the largest importer of second-hand clothing. Yeah. And those are indices of poverty.
Yes.
When a country, all you see there is just second-hand, third-hand, And, of course, that also was reflected in even why that, riot started last year. The IMF World Bank said if you don't tax more, the economy will collapse. That was what made, the president to embark on that. Secondly, the police in Kenya. Why did they look so barbaric? The same thing they did in the last one that everybody who is interested in human rights protection talked about, happened again this time.
They killed only 16.
Only
16. 200. In Nigeria, you people kill more.
No. It's really disheartening. It is disheartening. I saw the young.
I'm giving you empirical facts.
I saw the young people. What were they carrying that would make police to start shooting? The same way they did about this time last year. They shot indiscriminately and just killed people.
In Nigeria, they will have killed hundreds.
But even if it happens here, that is not the model that we should recommend. Okay. It is very disheartening that we are seeing this kind of thing in 2025. And William Ruto really needs to wake up. Or that we will even begin to mobilize some here, we who belong to the human rights constituency, that the next election vote him out. I will go to the social media to start up. No.
You have social media?
Yeah, well, to start the process. It needs to call.
What's trending?
No, it's not. It's not what trending kind of thing. Honestly. William Ruto has not done well. After that last year's, brutal intervention, the police, they should be training and to get them to behave better. You just kill 16 people like that? What are they protecting? I mean, just look at them. The footage that was just, what are they? Who are they going to harm? Who are they going to really hurt to deserve being shot at? Anyway, so that's it with Kenya. Uganda is a shame that Museveni is going for a 7th term. He came in 1986. He will soon be 40 years. His 7th term probably was also for 8th term. It's a shame. It's a disgrace to Uganda, to Africa. These are people who give us bad name. That maybe it's in their DNA. You can imagine the language they are using. So people like us who oppose Caesarism, we are lumped together in that same group of it's in our DNA. Yes, you give me a position, I stay there for years, I move on to other things. How do they want to see how he's 80? He will be 81 in a few months. I mean, anyway, but we hope Ugandans will be able to take their destiny in their hands. DR Congo and Rwanda. Well, it's good they've signed an agreement. Anything that will bring peace, we'll support. But I'm very sad that it's in the US they are going to sign an agreement. Yeah. Where is AU? We've said all the while that AU should, put in place structures to help them resolve this matter. They had to go to the US, and the US, of course, like you said, transactional. The interest of Trump is mineral. So it's like, changing one master for another. And in all those countries where you have had, like even Russia, that is seen to be egalitarian or touristic, it is not. In South Sudan and Central African Republic, where they have been prominent, the evidence reveals that they've taken billions in minerals in those countries. So this, what they are negotiating, will bring peace. Yes, let's hope so. But the aftermath, which is the mineral exploitation, what is going to be the structure? We'll be interested. Because Africa has been too much exploited, too intensely, over too long a time. And all of that, needs to stop at this point. Then finally, the Middle East. I disagree with our guests in his statement that the bombing by the U.S.
Dr. Victor Okai.
Okai, yes. Where he says we'll push Iran to start negotiation. Just 2 hours ago, a few hours ago, what Iran has said is that it's not going to negotiate with anybody.
Exactly.
And that it is going to pursue. Now it's as if it has been given the express confirmation to go ahead. Because it's not going to negotiate with anybody. It's not going to, all of those diplomacy that they were trying to carry out, they are not going to do that.
No, but it's conditional. Ayatollah Khamenei says that if it is attacked by Israel, it will fight back.
That is fight back. But we are talking about, enriching uranium.
No,
they're not going to stop.
They have said they will not stop.
That is the thing. So, in fact, the war may have been counterproductive. Because before now, they were still looking at, how would the world look at us? But since Israel have bombed, the US has also bombed, say obliterate, of course. We know that did not happen. Even the intelligence from the US also confirming that did not happen. That it's only a step back for a few months. If it's step back for a few months, and this country...
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And this country now says, we are not interested in even the gentleman thing we were doing before. That, in fact, that we have been suffering, that we see ourselves as having suffered a lot from battered wife syndrome, which is that we were trying to...
Wives are always complaining. Don't use wives.
This is a theory.
Wives
this is a concept. This is a concept. And what does battered wife theory say? It says that the women who try to please their husbands, despite being beaten, maybe that will make them to love them. That Iran says that was what we have been doing. Now we are full blown. We are going to focus on.
He's laughing because he knows about these battered wives. Wives will always complain.
We are going to be North Korean like, and if that happens, then the whole war will have achieved the opposite. Well, I agree with the submission that peace in the region is important. Yeah. Iran needs to recognize Israel. All that rhetoric of, Israel will not exist needs to stop. Israel too needs to be more respectful. Of course, it has shown now that those so-called Iron Dome can be penetrated. 28 Israelis died. Hundreds, maybe 610 or so of Iranians died. That shouldn't happen. So moving forward, they should know that no one can really obliterate the other. So how to live side by side peacefully should be the focus.
Balance of terror. Yes. Now, Professor Kila, let's come to...
Well, let's say tax, budget, foreign affairs in the world and in Africa. Let me start from the tax thing. Because I am a low-tax person, my instinct is to praise the reform that has been done. I think it's a good thing. But a closer look,
low tax person. You don't pay tax?
No, low. No. Policy-wise.
We inform the authorities.
Well, the authorities have my papers. I pay tax. There are few Nigerians that pay more tax than me compared to what I earn. But the point is, in terms of, as an economist, my view, as somebody said, you cannot tax your way to prosperity. I believe in focusing more, in making the oven bigger than fight about the slice of cake that comes out of it. My view is that we should find a way to and I'm going to talk about my idea of what kind of tax we're paying. So overall, it's a good idea, but I think it's very good theoretically. It is better in theory than in practice. By the way, that talk of saying tax is not about revenue, but it's about, what is it that they said? It's about
fairness, equity,
that
justice.
is, that's political gibberish. Tax is always about revenue. Tax is always about money. Zacchaeus in the Bible was after money. This Nigerian Zacchaeus, I don't know what kind of tax.
Money as well.
Well, okay, so what kind of tax man is he?
No, Zacchaeus Adedeji wants framework.
Yes.
He wants proper collaboration.
He's just been
between the-
political. He's just been
No,
political.
that's not
But he
political.
also wants
We need a framework.
for government.
We need a framework where it's also about money. But the point is this. I like what they've done because they've reduced tax overall. But you see, what they've done is better on paper than in practice for a very simple reason. When the slogan, the message, this tax helps the poor, is something that works in countries where the poor pay tax. In Nigeria, majority of the poor don't pay tax. They're outside that net of tax. So it really doesn't help. It's good because it gives a sense of framework to do. I think to that extent it's good. I'm just a teacher who wants more. You say you've gotten 70%. I'm see if we can push you better. If they really want to do it, they need to look at those outside the tax net. And because majority of the people are outside it and they're in the informal sector, you know what would really be good if we want to create a revenue base? A flat tax for a lot of poor people that they don't need to do something. Pay one flat tax, 10,000, 5,000 a year, get a card, show you've paid it, and that will increase our revenue base without any constraint. Given where we are now, they need to do some homekeeping for this thing to work at all. They need to train their own staff. They need to inform their own staff so that you don't have unnecessary multiple implementation or attempt to implement the tax. Somebody needs to show them how to streamline the whole thing. I am neither surprised, nor disappointed that this administration has done that. Those who remember the Governor Tinubu of Lagos will link him to tax issues as well in various ways. So there's a continuum that if anybody was opening their eyes, I'd have been surprised if they had not done this kind of reform. So, you get what you know, and that's at least there's a kind of consistency here. I think it is important that the tax people themselves are trained, everybody involved, to know the new regime, to know what the tax policy people are trying to achieve. There's going to be some conflict between the tiers of government, state government, local government, because now you're taking the cake from them. There are people who are used to going about collecting taxes that have now been abolished, or rather still, there are people outside that net. I think that internal conversation, intra-government conversation needs to be heard to improve things. The other thing about budget is that I'm very sad about our budget issue, because it shows some kind of inability to strategically think using reality about our situation. The fact that the amount of revenue that came in is lower than what was expected. Some of us, that's a chronicle of a foretold disaster. Some of us predicted that last year, straight away. When we juxtaposed the expected revenue to what they were planning to spend, you don't need to be a soothsayer. You don't need a magic anything to see what happened was going to happen. But I think it says something bad about our finance management, because contrary to what people think, one of the first duty of government is to create certainty. If government says, I am spending 10 naira, people should be able to project on that. You see, that certainty is priceless, because you know that when government talks, it will happen. If government says we're doing 10 things a year, people should be able to project, invest, borrow money, deploy staff around the projection of government. The fact that we don't see it, it has a cost. These are hidden costs that we don't bring to the table. Maybe if we start doing this kind of analysis, it might help us. And these are issues that we can actually resolve once we have the resolve to do it. Once we decide to be more realistic and data-driven rather than grounded there, ideas that we say or we copy is something that we can resolve. To Africa, Kenya, Uganda, there's a common thread, which is that of weak institutions. Professor Aworawo is embarrassed by by the people who are doing 7 years, or they want to stay in office forever, and they think all Africans are like that. But anybody can be that way, including the UK, US, anybody in the world. What is happening is that these people are doing it because they can do it. And there are two major reasons. It's because the institutions are weak that allows them to do it. But it is also true, and that's the case, I link Kenya to that because the reason why police can kill people 2 years ago or 1 year ago and still come back to do it now is because after that happened, there was no real stringent policy to say thou shalt not behave this way, we shall train you to stop behaving this way, and if you behave in that bad way, these are the things that will happen to you. That's the institutional problem that we're having. It's the same institutional problem we're having in Uganda. This man was a young man when he got there. He grew old right in front of us, the Ugandan president. I don't know. Our viewers should go and Google him. When he got there, he was a young man. Right in front of us every day, he became old, you know. Those kind of things are terrible, but it's because they can do it. I think we need to really build our institution. It is also true, and here to the point of they're not acting Nigeria. People say, it is said that people get the government they deserve. It is also true that people get the government they tolerate. Because at some point, yes, at some point, if they don't tolerate that kind of government, the people of Uganda really, I appeal to my friends and colleagues in Uganda, they really need to stand up against this kind of embarrassing situation, and maybe they can go and get help.
The people get a government they deserve.
Then they keep the government they tolerate.
So, it's not about tolerating.
It's about tolerating.
It's what they deserve.
Well, no. It's more about, I argue, that it's more about tolerating than deserving. Because if anybody rigs their way into power, if they force their way into power, if the people don't, or if somebody gets into power legitimately and is a good man, and he turns mad while he's in power, if the people don't tolerate it, then that government will not stand. Okay. We need to include tolerance in government issues as well.
Okay. In Nigeria, we have what we deserve.
And in business, they say you don't get what you deserve, but what you negotiate.
There you go.
Okay.
The people of Uganda should go to, Professor Aworawo is in Unilag. The people of Uganda should go and look for him and try to form a resistance to get out this government of Uganda, or do something really. Then there's a track, you talk of Nigeria and Kenya. We need to apply some intellectual thing. I want anybody who's interested in doing a comparative study between NSAS and the situation in Uganda to contact me on social media. And we need to get people to start thinking this way.
Okay, that would be a better assignment for Professor Aworawo.
No, he wants to do revolution in Uganda. He doesn't want to do professor.
No. He can give us comparative history, social history.
No, he will not be connected on international treason.
You have your next paper.
No problem. No problem.
He'll be on the panel when people submit. We'll do it together, David. You and I.
Anyway, let's take another local subject that is interesting. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on Thursday night hosted the two principal actors in the long-running political crisis, which led to the imposition of a state of emergency on Rivers State. Apparently, the meeting produced a positive outcome, given that both the Minister of Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, and his political rival and suspended Governor, Simi Fubara, emerged from the session wearing a reconciliatory disposition, saying it was time to bury the hatchet and work for the greater good of the people. Professor Kila, let me now go anti-clockwise. What do you think? Do you agree that this is about the greater good of the people of Rivers State?
Well, I don't. If they knew the greater good, that's where they should have started from. You don't use people's life to get to the greater good after spending time, money, making a lot of things, suspending governance in a whole state. The House of Assembly has been suspended. The governor has been suspended. They've used words against each other. Some dullards have followed one or the other one of them, and they've made a lot of chaos. Then all of a sudden, they discovered the greater good. We have been shouting the greater good on this table from the onset when all these things started. I'm not very impressed by all these things, honestly. And I think we have to be careful, because when people act this way, besides what they do to governance, there's also an issue in the country that it's an assault to people's intelligence and sensitivity. When we act with big matters like this, we turn into trivial things like neighbors or school children fighting and put them together. These are institutional matters, and people are personalizing it. And I think we need to be very careful not to lose our decorum and the gravity of institutional matters. I'm not taken by this that they've made peace kind of matter. This is not a matter of two fighting, two brothers. This is an elected governor, a minister of the federal Republic of Nigeria. We need to think things that way.
Professor Aworawo, briefly,
Yes.
as we begin to wrap.
I agree with Professor Kila. Actually, it's for the greater good of Wike, the president, and to a lesser degree, Fubara. And not in the interest of Rivers. We can see that. Because just to give an example, we understand that money that would change hands from Rivers coffers to some people was part of the quarrel. In this negotiation, of course, those issues will have been sorted out, which means Rivers money will be going to some people, and all sorts of things that follow. Like, they didn't want the roads yesterday. I mean, must somebody be governor? Because when you look at the terms, one of the terms that you won't contest second term, very humiliating to the governor. Even though we know the suspension was not even, constitutional. But let's see.
The governor says this reconciliation is difficult, but necessary. So,
I said it's their interest. We came first, the president Tinubu second, and then Fubara to a lesser degree. But for the Rivers people, so sad for them.
Okay, Mr. Ologun, help us to.
Thank you very much. Let me commend the veteran in conflict resolution. I recollect that in 2018, when Buhari was faced with crisis within APC, he had to call Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, even though he was one of the perceived victims of the crisis then, to go and reconcile. There were issues in Kano, Zamfara, Kogi, and he did it excellently well towards the 2019 election. He did it firstly for these rivers, but it didn't work. Now they've come together to concede, and I understand some of the concessions is that Wike may have to nominate the 23 local government leadership, and Fubara may not contest for the second term, and he himself has said earlier that must he be governor at all force. And I agree with us in this studio that it's not about the interests of the people. And the earlier the citizens realize that politicians focus on their own career interests, I think the better for us. And I asked a question while this was evolving, that where are the leaders in Rivers State? But now,
those elders have disappeared. They call themselves elders, not leaders.
And we also made reference to how the Lagos State House of Assembly crisis was quelled by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So, and I think I give it to him for. And now the anti-clockwise may now take place in Rivers, because we look forward to reversing the trend. Let Fubara come back to be governor. Let the House of Assembly be reconstituted. Let them cooperate, run this term safely. But please, if it pleases them, consider the interests of the citizens, because that is the essence of democracy.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jide Ologun. Thank you, Professor David Aworawo, and Professor Anthony Kila. I look forward to seeing all of you again next Sunday. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. For my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now. And thank you very much for watching.